Are your examples relevant? I already talked about that. Do the resumes reflect the experience? If any of you work with the 330, you see you're now, the federal SF 330 forces you to have projects on the resumes that are linked to projects in the relevant experience section. So this is very important to the clients. Yeah, they don't want somebody to go, yeah, our firm did tons of those, but the people that we're giving you to work on your project have not worked on any of those projects. Clients are very savvy today. They no longer want that. They want to know that the people that are being proposed have the experience that the firm is showcasing. And then finally, have you clearly shown that you have the technical expertise to do the job? You know, have you demonstrated your capability of handling the project? A lot of times small firms have a challenge in being perceived as not capable of doing a project of a certain size and scope. If you have experience doing work of the size and scope of this project, you want to make sure that you demonstrate that, because you want to show we have the ability to do this. We've done it. We're efficient. Have you demonstrated the ability to meet the client's schedule? Okay? That's very important. Do the figures all agree? And then finally, is the proposal easy to read, consistent in numbering and formatting? Because if it's hard for them to read, they're not going to believe that you're going to be able to provide them with consistent reports that are easy to read during the project. What's the rest of your communication going to be like? If you can't create a proposal that they can easily read, what is working with you going to be like? Think about it. Okay, presentations. Now, in the best of all possible worlds, you've been selected. The team you're on has been selected. The interesting thing to me is, what I've got on the board here are all the possible things that you can do to market your firm. You know, you go out, you network, you call people, you make appointments, you send in qualifications, you attend trade shows, you advertise, you attend conferences, okay? You do all of this to win work for your firm. You send out an RFP, and then it's time for the shortlist interview, and suddenly everybody gets too busy to rehearse. Okay? This, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is the most important point in all of your marketing effort. Getting in front of the client. All right? Nothing is more important than that. Everything that you have done up until now has been done in order to get you to this point. So now is when everything else stops. This is your highest priority. So, upon notification, what do? Take a look at these items. Do they look familiar? They should, because they're exactly the same thing that you do when you get an RFP. You know, sometimes a decent amount of time may have elapsed between the RFP and notification that you've won. All right? So what you want to do is find out, did anybody learn anything more about the project or the client? Maybe the client was in the newspaper. I can remember we were going out to that new JetBlue terminal, which is now constructed, and there was a lot of news about JetBlue in the paper talking about how important their image was to them. And so what I did was give this to the principal in charge of our, who was on the team, and then what he did was send it to the lead team. We were a sub-consultant. We sent it to the lead team, and you know, it was great to have that additional information to work with and try and weave it into the interview, because we understood that the image was so important to the client. Okay? Again, you got to make copies of the agenda, the notification that the client sends you. Here's the time, the date, the place. This is who will be on the selection committee. This is how much time you will have to present. This is how much time you will have for Q&A. And you want to hold another strategy session, because the question is, for your proposal to be successful, you have to have the right people, the right project experience, the right approach, the right price, and you have to have what I call a peerless aspect, something that sets you apart from everybody else who's been shortlisted. All right? Now, I can still remember when I worked at Thornton Tomasetti Engineers, and at that time, we had a group of mechanical electrical engineers who were from Russia. They were born in Russia, but they had immigrated to the United States, and they were working here, and we got shortlisted for a Navy project. And nobody realized it, but when we sent the team down to NAVFAC, this was in the 1980s, we sent an entire team of Russians to the Navy. So talk about the wrong people on the team, okay? So clearly, we did not win that job. So, you know, sometimes you don't think about that, especially in New York City, where we have such a diverse population. I know an engineer, I know an architectural firm in New Jersey that got shortlisted for a project at Douglas College at Rutgers. Douglas is the women's division of Rutgers. They didn't have a single woman on their team. They didn't win the project. And they were told when they got the debrief that that was one of the reasons why. They didn't think about it. Okay? You do have to be careful about who you are sending to represent your firm at an interview. All right. So now, when you have this strategy session, you know, you really have to have the principal in charge, the project manager, the marketing director, the marketing coordinator, and, if possible, any of the key sub-consultants. Maybe you can do this by a teleconference. What do we know? What do we need to know? Anybody know anything in particular that can add to the reasons why we should be selected? So now, what you want to know when you go into the interview is who's on the selection committee. Sometimes the client will tell you, sometimes they won't. But you ask, okay? Who's the competition? Now, DASNY is an excellent agency because they always post who the sub-consultant team, or who the competition is for a shortlist. There are other New York City agencies that do not. But let me tell you something. As a sub-consultant, you may be on more than one team, okay? And if you are on the sub-consultant team, on several teams, that is valuable information for you to give to the team that you're on. Now, when I was working for Leslie Robinson Associates, some of you may know Kim Toscano, who is a legendary marketer in our industry. She had worked for a MBE cost consulting firm. Now, Kim and I, and this is a good tip for everybody, find yourself a buddy in a non-competing discipline that you share information with. Kim and I were usually on all the shortlisted teams between us. And we would be like the only two people in New York that would know the entire shortlisted team. And we would then be like really valuable to the team we were on because we said, okay, here's the competition. People loved us when we provided them with that information. Once a week, Kim and I would call each other and say, okay, here are the proposals we're going after, and I tell her, here are the ones we're going after, and here's the firms we pursued. These are the firms that are definitely... We would share that information. And if you can find somebody in an allied but non-competitive discipline as you, that you share that information with, it's valuable to you. It's extremely valuable to you. Okay? Yes, sir.
How do you handle some too much urge that you got to sign a non-disclosure?
Yeah. Well, if you...
What's going on now with the Tappan Zee?
You know what, if you have to sign that, you have to sign that. I mean, there's nothing that you can do about it, and you can't share it if you can't share it. That's all. But that's I think in rarer instances you find that. But when you have to sign a non-disclosure, you have to sign it and you have to obey it. But where you haven't done that, feel free to share the information. Okay? Now, the other thing, yes?